my mind is made up.
Hey guys, this is Eric Kyle, publisher of Latitudes and Attitudes magazine.
And I'm David Levesque, editor of Latitudes and Attitudes, and welcome to Three Sheets, our podcast where we chill and chat with individuals making a difference in the cruising lifestyle.
Each episode, we'll dive into all things cruising related and bring you some of the most influential characters out there. So sit back, grab your favorite bottle, light them if you got them, and enjoy the adventure. Hey guys, Eric Kyle here, publisher Latitudes and Attitudes magazine. I am super excited to be joined by one of our good friends here in the cruising space, Joe with Chasing Bubbles. Joe, thanks so much for joining us today, my friend.
Yeah, ahoy. Happy to be here and represent the Chasing Bubbles crew.
Outstanding. Of course, we have David Levesque, the infamous or infamous editor of Latitudes and Attitudes. And he's going to go ahead and say a few words, and we'll get things kicked off here and find out more about what's going on with Joe over at Chasing Bubbles.
Infamous, unfamous, refamous, who knows, man? Something like that. I'm willing to take them all. Joe, it's absolutely a pleasure to have you on our podcast. Listen, I mean, we had the opportunity to, hear about the story of Chasing Bubbles on several different levels. And in the last issue of this little tiny magazine we have called Latitudes and Attitudes, we had an article in there. There it is. That was pulled together by Brian from Young Cruisers Association, and on the regatta you guys did and all that kind of stuff. And then we had the pleasure of meeting you and your family in Annapolis this past fall for the boat show. And we had a lot of fun, and we had a lot of beer too.
Yeah.
But, what we want to do in this podcast, we know who you are, and we've had a great time getting to know you and the mission that you guys are on. But we want to take this podcast to really dive into the history of where all this came from for people that may be living under a rock that haven't seen the documentary that started this whole thing. But something else started the documentary. So I'd really love to dive into that and have you tell us the story of this.
And just keep in mind, guys, Three Sheets is really a podcast where we're trying to reach out to people who are out there actively in the cruising community, have connections to the cruising community. And as in Latitudes and Attitudes, we're trying to not only inspire people to go out and join that cruising community, but be fearless in doing so. Go out and take advantage of the dreams that are presented to you as a result of being part of this community. And bringing Joe in Chasing Bubbles is probably one of the most inspirational stories I've ever heard in the cruising community. So thanks again for joining us today, Joe.
Yeah, I love that, Eric. Yeah, well said. That's what Chasing Bubbles is about too. We want to inspire people to chase their dreams. That's what the name Chasing Bubbles really means. It's a pursuit of, and bubbles are, which I'll get into a little bit, like how activate the imagination of a child and the invention of a child. Being a kid again is sometimes what it takes to remind yourself to be a kid again. Is sometimes what it takes to chase your dreams. To lose that all those barriers and fears that we come up with in our lives. It stops us from doing what we really want to do, chasing our dreams. And so the story really goes back to Captain Alex, who you see here on my chest here. That's my older brother, Alex. He is the guy who dared greatly, and after working in an unfulfilled job as a trader in Chicago, he quit his job to sail around the world. And he, like many cruisers, he was trying to save up money to do it, and he started renting his apartment and living in a van on the streets in Chicago while still putting on a suit to go trade in the pits in the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So he was scrappy, and he made it work, and he was big for adventure. And but like anywhere, you got to start somewhere. And so he started with a smaller boat called the Wild Sea Monkey, and that was a boat he kind of started off with as a way to learn how to sail, but also party. He was still in this time of his life where he just really wanted to have a good time, and he found a way to mix that with sailing. And so the Wild Sea Monkey is where he kind of got his sea legs around the Caribbean, and Bubbles came in just shortly after, when he was ready to cross an ocean. And you kind of see this story of Alex in the documentary too evolve from him starting to pursue this dream and it kind of starts off more as a party, and it kind of starts to slowly evolve into this bigger, more meaningful, inspirational story about how you could, with cruising, you can find community, you can connect with different cultures and different people. You kind of have a chance to bring people out into the world, and that was a big part of his mission on Bubbles. He had over 139 people crew on his boat too, so it was all about the people as well.
That is awesome. I don't want to get too involved in what the documentary already talks about, but just so our viewers and the listeners can understand where we're coming from here. This is a guy in Chicago. Did he learn how to sail in Chicago? Did he grow up sailing? What's a little backstory on his sailing experience to get into it? Why in the world would you want to quit your job at the Mercantile Exchange in downtown Chicago, live in a van, not down by the river, but close enough,
Yeah.
and decide to go sailing? I mean, what the heck was going on there to make that transition?
Yeah, so we grew up in a pretty big family. Alex and I are two of 13 kids in our
Good
family. So
Catholics.
grew up with a lot of people, and grew up with a passion for people as well, and also adventure. Our dad was, in a sense, too, kind of a homebody, like really rooted in Southern Indiana, in our town in Seymour, Indiana. His family, his great grandfather migrated here from Germany as a farmer, so a simple farmer here. But also, my dad saw a lot out in the world, and so he took us as kids around the world to explore and see what was out there. And that seed was planted in all of us from a young age. And so we grew up spending time in Australia, Brazil, Paraguay, Poland, Germany, and a lot of times, whenever we had the chance to, we would do it in a minivan. Dad would like to cram us all in a van, sometimes two minivans if we're taking more of us, and we would drive as far as the Arctic Circle up through Alaska, or as far south as Mexico City. And because to him, our dad wasn't just about flying to these places, it was the journey along the way. And I think that got embedded in us growing up. And Alex also saw this, he wanted to see the world, and what better way to have an extended journey to see things along the way than in a sailboat. I think, if, unfortunately, my dad passed away when we were young, and I think Dad would have found it very, very fitting that Alex found that avenue through a sailboat. Even though we're landlocked in the middle of cornfields in Southern Indiana, we found a way to kind of make that all work.
So Joe, let's just circle back to it again. I want to make sure that we are covering, the hard stuff here. Alex gets chasing bubbles. He starts sailing around the world. What happened from there? Please just pick it up for us.
Yeah, so he went through quite a transformation, I think, by going around the world. He had a connection for people, but also he found a deep connection with kids. I think there was just a lot of joy that he got from interacting with kids, and almost every chance he had to invite kids to get on Bubbles, he did. And we see that through his videos and his pictures that he took, and how, the things he talked about. And even with me, when I sailed with him, around a good chunk of the South Pacific, a little bit around South Africa, and then the Caribbean. And each of those times we had opportunities where Alex would stop and get local kids on the boat to show them what it was like to get on a sailboat, and to be inviting. And sometimes these local tribal kids have never seen a sailboat up close. Maybe have only seen it in the distance. But he also went to these places where they'd never seen a sailboat before, like so far up the Sepik River or down these tributaries in the Amazon. And so I think he felt this, like, he had a greater purpose than of going around the world. It wasn't just about himself. It was a little bit about his own discovery, but also providing for other people. When I was with him for Christmas one time in Cape Town, he found a connection through a local orphanage, and we brought a dozen kids out on the boat and took them out on sailing excursions on Christmas Eve. And then he asked me to bring a Santa suit, and so one of us dressed up like Santa, and we gave out gifts to these kids, to give them kind of a special experience that they may not have had. And just a super warm feeling to be able to connect with kids. And so that's what we're trying to do today with Bubbles, now that we have the boat back, is, Alex was inviting kids on the boat as much as possible. He wasn't afraid. I feel like you could take your boat out to a adventurous place, and you might be nervous. Oh, do I want all these people on my boat? Alex did not have that fear. He wanted people to see and experience his boat and share that. And so we don't want to have that fear either, and we want Bubbles to be as busy and as used as much as possible. And that's why we're gearing up for these youth programs. We want kids to be comfortable on the boat and see their opportunities, that they can pursue out on the water. It's really sad. There's a lot of statistics around island kids being afraid of the deep water. They go as far as the beach, and that's it. And they don't have the economic opportunity to learn how to sail or learn how to operate even a motorboat. And so they're stuck in these cycle of poverty where they can't even pursue jobs in some of the biggest industries on islands. And so we're hoping to not only show them the opportunities of what's out there in the world and inspire them to think bigger than in their small communities, but also give them a practical way to pursue a job that could be more meaningful and provide money and resources and things like that, because there's some practicality around that too. But I'd say overall, like this energy of Alex being warm and inviting to people is what we want to carry on with the boat. And so whether you're a disadvantaged kid on an island and we want to get you on a boat, or you're somewhere from the Midwest and you've never set foot on a sailboat, we invite you to join us on Bubbles 2 for an ASA sailing course, and we'll show you the ropes, show you the lines, show you how to make your own adventure come true, whether it's just around the Virgin Islands or all the way around the world. We want to help make that happen.
It sounds like Alex was a hell of a guy, somebody that I certainly would have liked to have met. And that's inspiring that he was able to not only find a self-fulfillment by sailing around the world, but also be able to give as a result of it. It's key to life, better to give than receive. I didn't know that for many years. But I'd like to kind of get into what happened to Alex. He was cruising around the world. He was doing his thing, making the mission a part of his life. And what happened?
Yeah, so he finishes this big circumnavigation, and he has a ton of pictures and stories and video footage, and he wants to kind of wrap this up into a story that he can use to share it with others about, you can go sail around the world. He called himself the worst sailor to ever sail around the world. You can do it. Like, you don't have to be over prepared. You don't have to have years of experience. You just start, and he wanted to inspire people to be able to go out and do it and not be stuck and saying, yeah, only a couple more weeks and I'm going to set sail, right? No, it's time to, you have the chance to do that. You just got to go after it. And so he wanted to package his story into a documentary and use that to inspire people. And so he was working on that when he got back. And he was also trying to think about what was next, what was the next adventure, the next dream to chase. And so he was throwing out ideas like he was going to get a different boat and go sail through ice waters. Maybe that was going to be it. Maybe he was going to get a hot air balloon and he was going to circumnavigate the world in a hot air balloon. He was even toying around with an idea like that. But he also was trying to dive a little bit deeper in his own for himself about like what he really wanted to do. And he invited a few different gals on his boat, and he dated a few different gals throughout. And I think there was this kind of underlying mission maybe where he thought, if I can survive with a girlfriend on my boat, I can survive with her for the rest of my life, right? So in a way, he was seeing if he could find a woman that he could marry and start a family with and have a bunch of kids like our dad. But yeah, that boat, that's probably one of the most stressful environments. He was right if you could survive, but it didn't survive. The relationships always fell short. And so I think when he decided, when he wanted to try to figure out what to do next, he went to India. He hadn't been to India before, and so he kind of packed a backpack and was going to do a little self-discovery trip by himself in India. One, for a little bit of a new adventure. He had not been there. but 2, yeah, self-discovery. And then 3, he thought, if I can't have kids right now, maybe I can continue to help a lot of kids. And so he had this idea, maybe I'll go to India and start this orphanage, because there's so many kids in such deep poverty in India. There's so much that need help. And unfortunately, after traveling for a few months over there, he caught typhoid fever and passed away in his sleep and died to complications of that typhoid. And yeah, something so tragic and kind of it's seemingly insignificant to us, because it's usually something that with the right treatment and care, it's not deadly, but it was something that he kind of brushed off to the side and didn't take seriously, and that ultimately was his downfall, when he's taken on pirates, jumping off cliffs, swimming with sharks. I mean, he's done some of the craziest things a man can do and survived, and then something like that. It was almost unbelievable when that happened, and so it took us a while to kind of figure out what happened too, with it being so far away and he was by himself. But we quickly realized we wanted to pick up the baton for him, and so we started helping kids in India with some scholarships and mentorship. We were just calling it the Alex Rust Memorial Fund. And we were helping kids in India as a kind of a small group of family and friends. And his friends picked up where he left off with the documentary. He was already working with some friends who were in that industry. Topher Cochran was the main director and producer. And so they finished a documentary about him and found the right name, and had to come up with a new ending, and got it across the finish line. And that's really the fuel of what we continue to do. Is as Alex's story is such an inspiration to a lot of people. We keep hearing that, and that's why we started to do a little bit more and more, as we kept hearing people say how much they loved his story, and that was like their tipping point to go buy their boat, or to finally set sail on the next leg, and take things head on. And so we want to continue to use that story to promote more programming, more ideas of how people can get involved with what we're doing with the boat.
Joe, I just want to jump in here real quick, because, and I appreciate you sharing all that. I know it's, time,
very much.
They say that time heals wounds, but I know a lot of them, maybe scar over a bit, but they don't ever heal. When you go to chasingbubbles.org, it's actually a beautiful piece that you wrote about Alex's last steps, or our first.
Yeah.
And it looks like in this piece, you can read that, 4 years after he passed away, you set off to India. It's almost like a personal journey of your own, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Just to retrace his steps a little bit and find out, where he was going and what he was searching for.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And at that point in my life, I was in the same rut I think Alex was before he started sailing from Chicago. You have these jobs that pay well, but are completely unfulfilling. It looks great on a resume, but you're like lost inside. You have no drive. You kind of lose your drive anyways. And so I had a great job, was paying me well, a consulting job here in Indianapolis, and it looked great on a resume, but I felt lost. I felt, lost, and I felt like I was really connecting with the Alex at the beginning of his journey, and I really wanted to do something about it. And I finally hit this point where and this was just shortly after, a few years after the documentary had come out. And in a way, I was kind of tired of people telling me how inspired they were by Alex, and then they were off doing these great things, and I wasn't doing anything. Like, I wasn't inspired by my own brother's story to do anything about my own life. And so, yeah, I finally took that leap 4 years after he passed, and quit my job and booked a one-way trip to India. And all I had were his digital pictures from his camera, and retraced his route through India for a 2-month journey to kind of find myself like Alex did. And it was on that trip that I found kind of renewed confidence that I can if I can go out and do this on my own, what else can I go out and do on my own in my own life? And if it wasn't for that trip, I would have not went on to start my own consulting company. I would have been stuck working for someone else, working for the man. But I finally had the courage to take on and work for myself, and it's been super satisfying. I wouldn't have the courage to land my amazing wife. I wouldn't have deserved her if I wouldn't have taken this trip. So this trip was a great renewal for me, and I owe it to Alex that he got me on that path. And that's also the trip where we realized we decided to turn the Alex Russ Memorial Fund into the Chasing Bubbles Foundation, into a real 501c3 as a public nonprofit where we get more people involved, we can have a bigger impact and kind of expand our reach beyond just scholarship, but get a lot of hands on what we're doing.
So you had told me in Annapolis.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, David.
I'm sorry, Eric. You had told me in Annapolis. I was just going to basically ask the same thing Eric was about to do, is just about Bubbles itself. And we talked on the phone the other day. Bubbles was not lost for a while. You just didn't have it. So how did you reacquire it, and how'd that process go?
Yeah, so a few years after we formed, we formed the Chasing Bubbles Foundation. We brought in some close friends of Alex and people that have sailed with Alex, and one of our board members, Christine Gordon, who sailed on Bubbles for quite a long while and dated Alex for a while, was really eager to find out where Bubbles was. And so her and another board member kind of went on their own mission down to the Virgin Islands to see if they could find Bubbles. And when Alex finished his circumnavigation, he sold it because he pretty much went broke doing this circumnavigation, and he sold Bubbles to kind of get back into life. That was like one of the main kind of things he could liquidate.
As a side note, zero cruisers can relate to that story.
Right.
I digress.
Yeah, right. So it went to a new owner, and when he sold it, and then they sold it to a young gal who was using it as a liveaboard with her and her little daughter. And Hurricane Irma demasted Bubbles, and Bubbles was, being equipped for liveaboard things and not sailing. So all of the sailing things were being, just kind of in disrepair. And Bubbles was really falling apart. But so Christine went down and she found her on St. John, and we stayed in touch with the young gal who was living on it. And about a year later, she reached out. We weren't too sure if we wanted to take on owning a boat at that time anyway, so we didn't push. We just were curious where Bubbles was. But about a year later, she reached out and she needed to move on and find a better place to live, and so she asked if we'd be willing to buy it. And so we considered it, and we knew it'd be a big risk. I don't know if we realized exactly how much work it would be, but we, like anyone, we were excited when we bought the boat, and then the work piled on. The work got real, and it was a huge refit because all the electrical was shot, all the plumbing was shot. There was no mast, there was no sails, there was no rigging. I mean, it was pretty much just the hull of the boat. And so we sent her through a pretty extensive refit to get her where she is today. And it ended up taking a couple years and a couple $100,000 to get her back in shape. And so she's actually on her first ASA charter today. We have 3 brothers who are learning how to sail on Bubbles right now through the Virgin Islands. And so we partnered with an ASA school based out of St. Thomas to help us kind of manage the bookings for the ASA school as an avenue. And then, we partnered with the Boys and Girls Club for the youth programs down there as well.
Outstanding. So what's next? What do you guys want to do with Bubbles outside of teach other people how to sail? Are you planning any long distance cruises on this boat? Are you taking on a new adventure yourself, Joe?
We're taking one step at a time. Yeah. So this is our first year with the youth programming and the ASA school. We're exploring our options. I'd love for Bubbles to do another circumnavigation. I'd love to, so we've explored what that looked like. If that, maybe um, assigning legs to different people who aspire to sail and explore the world in different ways. So, we're open to ideas, but if people have ideas and they want to get involved, I'd welcome them to, reach out to me. My, our main objective with the boat is that she just keeps sailing, and she sails in blue waters, and can continue to be available for people to use. We want it to be a shared resource for good. And the last thing we want is for it to be stuck on a mooring ball and not get used. So we're eager to, we want it to really be like our megaphone too, because the powerful, Bubbles is a vessel, but Bubbles is, I think Alex even nicely said, it's more than a boat. It's his story. His story is what rocked people, into doing something. And so we want to use Bubbles as our mascot or as our megaphone to help share the story with more people and see it, coming around the corner of an island somewhere and say, whoa, that's that Bubbles story, of the guy who sailed around the world and brought along a lot of people and created a lot of cool stories. And, maybe think they can do that too.
I think, David, we might have a picture of this boat somewhere around this magazine called Latitudes and Attitudes. There's a possibility. Oh, look at that boat.
Is this it on the cover, Joe?
Actually, that's one of the boats from the Chasing Bubbles Regatta last year, but that is not Bubbles on the orange.
Okay.
That's the orange tail looks pretty sharp, but Bubbles doesn't have.
Makes it pop, don't it?
It does really make it pop.
We saw that photo and we're like, yeah, it's a cover.
It was a really nice shot of that boat. But there are some good shots there. Yeah, there it is. There's Bubbles with
Is that Alex up on the spars?
That is, uh-huh.
So sitting there, do a little wing on wing action. Love that. That's nice.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
So tell us a little bit about this flotilla that you guys did that we covered with that cover shot.
Yeah, just following the same theme of like we just want as many people to enjoy Bubbles as possible. When Bubbles was finally ready to sail, a few of our board members came down to St. Thomas to kind of kick the tires and test everything out. And we wanted to kind of do it with a bunch of other people, kind of bring Bubbles back with a bang. And so we reached out to Brian at Young Cruisers Association and said, hey, what can we do to bring other boats in? And then we also reached out to Rolf and Sasha from Spirit Animal. They had heard about what we were doing and they were going to be in the area. And so we kind of collectively came up with this idea of literally the Chasing Bubbles Regatta, where it's a pursuit race of Bubbles. And Bubbles sets sail each day at a set time, and all the other boats are in pursuit of Bubbles. They are chasing Bubbles in this 3-day regatta. And so we kind of came up with this idea, and we thought, well, let's kick it off with a big party. And YCA hosts these flotillas kind of around the world with other cruisers. And Brian offered to host a flotilla to kind of welcome everyone for the first day. And so we sailed over from St. Thomas to the BVIs, and we kicked things off with a flotilla, and then followed up with 3 days. Each leg, we selected a new winner, and at the end of the 3 days, we picked a grand champion over the day. So it was a lot of fun.
If you haven't seen the issue, and that's your own damn fault if you haven't seen the issue, but there's some phenomenal photos in there about apparently award ceremonies that were done for this. I mean, there's some photos that I can't even show on camera, I don't think, but it's like you guys have some crazy awards you gave out. I know Rolf showed up at our booth at Annapolis. He's like, hey, my mom's ass was in your magazine. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, on page whatever. He goes, that's my mom mooning the camera. I'm like, oh, yay, mom. Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, I think that you can actually view this whole issue for free now that it's not the current issue. So if you go to latsats.com, go into the digital archives, you should be able to view this issue right now for free and go through and see Ross Mom's ass. That's pretty epic, man. As a matter of fact, let's pause this for a moment. No, I'm just
Funny.
So, yeah, that's pretty awesome. So how do you come back from that? Well, so let's get back into what the mission is right now, because you and I sort of talked about this a little bit the other day. You know, the whole thing with kids, that's amazing. I mean, Eric and I both have a soft spot for kids. You know, we're around them. We've had them. You know, I claim at least 2 of them. You know what I mean? People ask me how many kids I got. I'm like, at least 2. So that's, Eric's got 3 daughters. You guys, I mean, obviously you guys are, you know, want to help kids out. I think I told you, I mean, I live in Buffalo. We got 2 Great Lakes. We're pinched right between 2 Great Lakes, Erie and Ontario. There are so many people in the city of Buffalo, kids in the city of Buffalo, that don't realize they live on two big lakes. They just don't realize it. And they don't realize what being on the water is all about. Eric's out in Toledo. He's on the other end of Lake Erie. He sees the same thing. What you guys are doing, I mean, the model for what you guys are doing, I know that there's other organizations around that are trying to get kids into sailing and stuff like that. I mean, what's your primary goal with this? I think you and I talked about maybe expanding this someday, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we founded, like when we were trying to come up with, you know, why we exist as an organization beyond just trying to share Alex's story, it really came down to, we want people to challenge the status quo, and we want people to feel confident to change the world, that they can change the world. And we kept coming back to this theme around kids and how it can apply to really anyone. The first kind of layer to that is, if we want to change the world, especially for future generations, we got to start with the youngest generation. You know, the youth, they're the ones who need our help. And if we can help them, they're the ones who are going to grow up and be change makers that we kind of need and want them to be. We need to equip them and inspire them and educate them. And so that's why we focus a lot of efforts on helping kids. And then 2, you know, kids also have this ability to not have these barriers about what they can and can't do. You know, when you ask a kid what they want to be when they grow up, there's all these huge aspirations. They don't limit themselves, and there's no reason at any age that we have in our life where we need to limit ourselves either. So it's, in a way, our mission is about kind of reminding ourselves to not limit ourselves, and that we can just be a kid again. Remember what it was like to be a kid again and have these dreams to, you know, like for Alex, to sail around the world. How do we unlock that aspiration? And so those are kind of the big things. We want to empower kids to chase their dreams, and it's like we want to be a kid at any age, and just be that, and also have that playfulness and not take things so seriously. You know, Alex found this way to make almost everything he did, you know, fun and enjoyable, because he had this, you know, this playful heart on how he kind of saw the world as his playground. And I think we can all learn from that, no matter where we are in life.
Amen to that.
Getting into this documentary, and I'm just going to throw this out there real quick, because I think people who are watching this are going to want to find out more about Alex and watch the documentary and get into it and find their own inspiration in this story, which is the reason that we're doing this podcast, right? So tell us about, how can we view this documentary and learn more about Alex and your mission at Chasing Bubbles?
Yeah, we're very much at a growth stage. So I think we're trying to create a program where no matter where you are in your life, you have an ability to get involved with something that we are doing. And so at the simplest form, Google Chasing Bubbles, and you'll find it on YouTube. It's a 90-minute commitment that can change your life, this documentary. That's like the first step. If you're hungry for more, we have a book available on Amazon that includes a lot of great stories that didn't make it into the documentary. You get some of the content of how the day-to-day went on Bubbles and meet a lot of the different crew members that came on and hear their stories from their perspectives. And if you're hungry for more and you want to actually get on Bubbles, on our website, you can find information about how to book Bubbles for your own charter or ASA school. Or if you're not interested in sailing, but you're interested in adventure and kind of taking a leap in a new way, we're also organizing a 2-week trip to India, and we're going to retrace Alex's steps and go through some really cool adventurous sites in India and explore kind of the awesome culture and heritage over there, but also get a chance to interact with some of the kids we've been supporting for almost 10 years now in the northern part of India, and they're really cool remote areas. I mean, it'll be a unique experience that you won't be able to hardly get on your own. So we got plenty of ways to get involved. It's all, it's all on our website. And at a minimum, I think we encourage everyone to just start with a documentary, because it's a good way to kind of understand the story and the reason why we do what we're doing.
Joe, you talk about these kids that you're going to connect with these kids in India, right? So kids that you guys have worked with and have been on the boat. I mean, you keep in touch with a lot of them, right?
Yeah, we try to, a lot through like WhatsApp groups and things like that.
Yeah. It's got to be fun to follow their stories and maybe have them come back and tell you how they're doing, right? And maybe how the experience grew them a little bit.
Yeah, and these kids are they're so driven too, with just the right amount of support, that we've been able to give them. And in full transparency, we partner with some missionaries that really do a lot of the heavy lifting, and so we just kind of help empower them to continue to do the work, because they're there on the ground. And so we just come in and we provide some more resources and some mentorship, and we get to interact with them, and the joy that they have and excitement they have for life, circle backs to us too. This is not a one-way street. It's a really beautiful exchange that we have with these students, because they give us hope and inspiration for some of the great things that they're taking on. And they're so hopeful, and they're eager, and they're starting their own businesses in these remote areas where a lot of them have grown up on dirt floors, and they're going off to college now and becoming journalists and entrepreneurs. And it's a beautiful thing. I get the chills thinking about some of these students that we've worked with, and I think Alex would be pretty thrilled about some of the impact we've had in his name and his honor.
I'm curious, Joe, if you were to say that there was one thing that Alex impacted you the most in your life, because without Alex in your life, 9 to 5, find a wife, college, kids, white picket fence. With Alex in your life, the whole world of adventure, it seems, opened up for you. Would you have kind of followed in your father's footsteps, or maybe not? Without the impact of Alex in your life, what was the most impactful thing that your brother did for you?
Yeah, I think it was just that perfect sailing analogy, that you just got to untie and set sail, and the courage that he had to really take on anything was always kind of there throughout our childhood of growing up. Alex was older than me, and even when our dad passed away, he stepped in a little bit, no longer just as a brother and as a close friend. He also kind of tried to fill that dad void, a little bit too, to kind of motivate and encourage me. But it was always with Alex, it was always like, what's bigger? Think bigger than whatever you're thinking now, and what's beyond beyond the horizon that you should go chase and pursue, and just to go figure that out. And so whether it was at Purdue and starting out with an easy major and trying to challenge myself into something hard like ag engineering, or if I was just starting to get involved, I wouldn't have run. Ended up running for student body president at Purdue, and I wouldn't have done that without the courage that Alex kind of said, if you want something, just go try it and see what happens. And so, I ended up winning the election I ran against the governor's son, the Purdue quarterback. I shouldn't have won, but I still went out and did it, and I won. And it's just a wild outcome where you could have all these things kind of stacked up against you, but if you don't try, you don't know what's going to happen. And so you just have to try. And I think that's how Alex's mentality was with everything he did in life. Like, hey, I've heard this running with the bulls is pretty a cool thing. And he ended up doing that like 6 times in Spain. He loved it.
Holy crap.
Like it was just that thrill of adventure. And so the chasing bubbles really is centered around, his lap around the world, but he did that with everything. It was like, how big can I dream? And let's just see what happens and see if we can make it happen. And that's kind of stuck with me. Like, let's just try. Whatever big dream you have, you gotta at least try. You never know what could happen.
And
When
that
you and
message,
I,
carrying the baton, and you're bringing that to other people now.
Yeah. That's kind of been my own dream that I'm chasing now, is I just want other people to see this story and feel this impact to start chasing that dream or that idea that they haven't taken on yet.
when you and I connected in Annapolis, we got a chance to, finally meet. And I know you were really excited to see that article and the cover and everything live on that magazine. Look, this magazine, we've had it for going on 3 years now. And, it's 28 years old at this point, Eric, I think. And, this magazine exists to support the cruising lifestyle, but it also exists to inspire the cruising lifestyle. And that's what we try to do as a balance in this book is have some support for what everybody's doing in terms of, encourage, just supporting people that are out there doing it, living it, and making a life out of it. Not just, YouTubers and people making money off of it, but, people that are, it's their life. It's, they don't have a lawnmower and a garage and whatever. It's like, it's the boat, and this is what we do. This is where we live. But we also exist on the other side to inspire people to try that, much like, your brother did, right? With, just try it kind of thing. And finding stories like yours is an absolute gift to what we're trying to do with this magazine. It really is a blessing and a gift. And, I've said it before. I mean, we've been saying it, and it's our mission. It's a community, and the word unity is in community, right? And, it's like, we talk about it all the time. It's like, somebody is going to jump in a dinghy and go help a guy that's struggling to get an anchorage, somewhere. He's not going to check his political affiliation first before he goes and helps him out. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's not what we do here. I have never seen a community tighter than what I've seen in the cruising community. And I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well said. And I experienced that firsthand as a young 19-year-old going on bubbles for the first time in the South Pacific, where we'd show up at the next island, and no matter what issues we were going through, there was always a group there willing to help and connect and want to hear your story. And it was a beautiful thing. It's just the group of strangers that can immediately connect like that. And it is inspiring, and it's been a really cool thing to experience. And yeah, if you haven't experienced that, you get out on a boat and you'll experience it pretty quick out in the world. Yeah.
Well, we ought to probably make mention what's on your hat, and what the YCA people have been able to do is see people, to keep people connected through the internet and through all kinds of different ways, is certainly going to have and will have a significant impact in the cruising community. So I'm glad to see that you're wearing that. I think that the YCA has made a huge impact in the whole cruising community and how people are connected. And it's just been a wonderful organization. I think that's how we got to know you as well, and hearing the story about Chasing Bubbles. So I want to just say thank you again, Joe. I really appreciated you spending your time here with us today. And we're definitely looking forward to taking this video of the documentary and maybe putting it up on our website so people can have other access to it as well. Maybe share it on our socials. I think it's an important thing. I know that I watched a documentary on this guy by the name of Matt Rutherford, who circumnavigated the Americas. And I was just like, oh my God, that is the coolest thing in the world. I can't believe this kid did that nonstop. So when you watch, and I watched Seaspiracy and a couple other documentaries, and it has an impact. So when you do get an opportunity to watch the documentary Chasing Bubbles, I think that I would love to hear from you to find out what kind of impact it had on our viewers and on our listeners today. So thanks so much for your time today, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joy, I want to just cover a couple things before we cut you off here and let you go back to your family. When's the next regatta? When's the next Chasing Bubbles regatta? What's on deck?
The next regatta is in April 2025. So hoping to make it an annual thing. This will be the second annual Chasing Bubbles regatta in the British Virgin Islands. And we're partnering up again with YCA to help bring in other cruisers. Yeah, super thankful for the community that they bring, and they make the world a smaller place, especially the cruising world. They keep people within reach, no matter where they are in the world. So we're excited to work with them again to kind of put bubbles out on the water for some more fun. We welcome everyone to kind of join in as they can. We got a landing page on our website where you can sign up either on a boat, and I think we're also open to helping organize some charters as well for people who don't have a boat.
And I think Andy, right, with Ocean Cruiser Podcast, he's involved in some of this as well.
Yeah, he's doing the Odyssey Sailing Festival. I think the week before we're going to do the Chasing Bubbles Regatta. So we're going to try to feed off of the Odyssey Sailing Festival and help bring in a lot of people and cruisers and sailing into the BVIs around the same time.
Well, would Latitudes and Attitudes have an invitation to possibly join us regatta?
Absolutely. Come on down.
Do you feel like you're on the spot right now, Joe? Do you feel it's the spotlight just saying, hey, man, what are you going to do? You're in the middle of the podcast. You're going to have to say absolutely. Sure. Come on down. Have a good time. We'll love to have you.
If you can be as good of a neighbor as you were at the Annapolis Boat Show.
Bring the kegs. Is that what you're saying? Bring the kegs.
Bring the kegerator. Bring the party.
Dude, we went through what was it, Eric? 9 kegs of beer?
9 an hour. It was amazing. I mean, just
that's horrible.
The way these cruisers drink is unbelievable.
Oh my Lord. So the last thing I want to ask you about, I want you to tell me about the beard. Your brother's beard. That's like legendary.
This old big beard right here, huh?
That is so legendary. It's incredible.
Yeah. He started growing it soon after he started sailing on the circumnavigation, and it kind of became, at first, like he's just becoming a little bit of a wild seaman, and then also as time went on, Alex started this tradition with the more hair you grow out, the more funky haircuts you could get too. And so he started this tradition with anyone who came on the boat. He had a pair of clippers ready, and he said, I'll give you a free haircut. You got to let me do whatever I want. And so he started doing some reverse mohawks, Fu Manchus, whatever. So it became a thing for crew members to have part of your passage or your rite of passage on the boat was an Alex haircut.
Eric, you never let me cut your hair.
And I never will.
Joe, thanks a lot, my man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for all you're doing. I mean, I love it. We're all just trying to inspire and share stories. And I think that's the easy first thing to do is keep talking and sharing what people are doing. So,
well, make sure that you visit chasingbubbles.org, chasingbubbles.org. You'll be able to get connected to all kinds of fantastic content that Alex helped curate, and Joe is continuing to bring this dream alive to a lot of different people that are out there interested in this lifestyle, or just want to have some good inspiration about people who have made the journey, done the journey, and are happy to share their story. So thank you again, my friend. It's chasingbubbles.org. That's where you want to go online, and we look forward to catching up with you. And apparently Dave is going to bring the kegerator down to your next flotilla. So I'll see you then.
All right, let's set sail. Good stuff.
Ahoy, brother.
Ahoy.
Ahoy.
My mind is made up. I'm gonna sail away.